extraordinary morning here too, a terrific, entertaining morning. England scoring 4:35 at lunch, Australia 39 for no wicket. The players are out in the middle. A little cheer there. I see Andrew Flintoff is going to bowl the first over. A big cheer for him, or maybe it was for Henry Blofeld, who's going to kick us off up here. Henry.
My dear old thing. Well, what a fascinating lunch interval you produce for us, Aggers, as you always do. This is a very significant moment. Can Andrew Flintoff reproduce the sort of bowling form that was so destructive for the Australians 4 years ago in 2005? Well, we'll soon know. Vic Mark sits alongside me. He'll be on the edge of his seat too. And here is Flintoff in now to Hughes. He bowls and Hughes up to the bouncer, predictable, and Hughes ducks. Of course, the cheers now, the first Freddie Flintoff bouncer, tremendous.
Well, not only a Freddie Flintoff bouncer, he had a few words afterwards, and Freddie doesn't often do that, but he bit of a smile on his face, but just a few little words.
Yes, he did, didn't he? There was a sort of element of Ernst Stavro Blofeld about that, wasn't there? And here comes Flintoff again, in, bowls now to Hughes, and Hughes gets another short one, and without going, did he go full toss? Was that full toss?
No. But what I was laughing at there is it was almost Derek Randall. He got the bouncer, he ducked, and then he kind of theatrically looked at Flintoff from the ducking position.
No, this is great stuff now, isn't it? Here's Flintoff again, round the wicket from the tap end, in. He bowls now to Hughes. Hughes ducks, and that one goes down the leg side. Pryor goes after it and takes it. Flintoff follows through. 90 mph that last ball. It's a nice afternoon, lots of cloud, but high. Can't see any blue, but that doesn't matter, as long as the light's good, which it is. And everything really in this particular garden here in Cardiff is lovely. And Flintoff's in again to Hughes. 2 steps, 2 gullies. He's up to the wicket now. He bowls. Oh, Hughes goes back. It's hit on the pad. The crowd appeal. No one else does. And the ball goes down into the slips. And it's Collingwood there who goes to his left and picks up and bends over then and polishes as to the manner born. 39 for 1, and Flintoff has already introduced an element of competition that perhaps was in a strange way missing just before lunch. I mean, it really is. It's very exciting, this. And Flintoff, being the man he is, rather when Ian Botham used to come back suddenly after an absence, he'd be straight in, probably a wicket in his first over. Let us see. Here is Flintoff again, galloping up to the wicket. He bowls down. Hughes goes back. I thought he played at that outside the off stump, and it is fascinating, isn't it, Victor?
It is terrific. Listen to the stands away to our right. They're relishing this. Away to our left, they're doing a corporate lunch still.
Well, I know, but I suppose they have got the telly on.
Yeah, but it's not quite the same.
It isn't, is it? I know. But that's the way of modern cricket, I'm afraid. And it's Freddie Flintoff once again. Flintoff is in, up to the wicket. Oh, my goodness, he pulls away. Another short one. 39 for 1 Australia. 28 to Hughes, 6 to Katich. And it's going to be, I'm sure, a continuation. Are we going to see off? No, we're not. We're going to see Broad bowling from the Cathedral Road end.
Well, that's the first act in what could be a terrific duel. And in a way, I like the way Hughes responded to that second delivery. It took me back to Randall being bounced by Dennis Lilly in the centenary test. He did a theatrical duck and stared down back at Flintoff. But we've got a duel. There was a lot of sparring going on yesterday, but now Flintoff, well, he got the crowd going away to our right. That big stand, it's a bit like the stand at Edgbaston that makes so much noise.
The Eric Hollis stand,
yeah.
Yes. Well, this cricket we've got now, it's Chris Broad who's coming back. He's bowling this end for the first time, the Cathedral Road end. 2 slips, a gully, short extra cover, mid-off and a square cover, fine leg, square leg and mid-on. And here comes Broad, a straight run, in now to Katich. He bowls, Katich goes back to cut, misses. That was not a good stroke. It was too close to his body. He hadn't got enough room, and he didn't back away and make a bit more room for himself. And he could very easily have got an edge there. And Katich goes down the wicket nervously and prods it, and so, in fact, does Hughes, his partner, who's got a certain amount to think about, or to chew upon, which he didn't have to chew upon before lunch. As Broad is in, round the wicket to the left-handed Katich. He's there now, he bowls. Katich goes across his stumps, plays on the up the back foot. Broad himself, in a burst of enthusiasm and aggression, fields in front of mid-off and aims as if to throw Katich's stumps down, but in fact doesn't release the ball because Katich was anchored in his crease. Again, both batsmen do a spot of gardening. Again, the tension builds up. It really is tremendously exciting, this. And the crowd joining in it, and I hope all those empty spaces in the hospitality suites were doing the same. Here's Broad again, in, bowls Katich. Katich almost got in, across his stumps, got into line, almost played at that, but did very well. He pulled out right at the last moment, knowing exactly where his off stump was, and the ball went through there to Matt Pryor. And, well, it's throwing stuff, isn't it, Victor?
It is. I mean, England are doing their best to use this new ball. Not in terms of swinging it, but using it while it's hard to get a bit of bounce out of this pitch.
And here comes Broad again, round the wicket, in bowls to Katich. Katich, oh my goodness me, Broad can't believe it, his hands are in the air. He played no stroke at the ball that must have been perilously close to his off stump. The angle of delivery, taking it in towards the left-hander, but he played no stroke. Broad's hands went right up in the air. He thought, I think for a moment, he had got through. And well, the excitement goes on. It is tremendous, this. And the crowd absolutely loving it. 39 for 1, the Australian score. That was their lunchtime score. They haven't added to it this afternoon. Broad again to Katich. He's there now, he bowls. And Katich turns this round the corner. They're off the mark again in the post-Prandial session. Katich gets a couple of runs as that's pushed away behind square on the leg side, and 2 runs come. So 41 for 1 is now the score, and Katich goes along to 8. And I must say, although Broad's a fine bowler, he's not yet a Flintoff, and you see the contrast rather, didn't you, Vic?
Yes, he bowls a similar pace, but there's not quite the same venom.
There isn't, is there? Here comes Broad again, up to the wicket. He's there, he bowls Katich. Katich again leaves the ball alone outside the off stump. That's slanting into him, but doesn't produce a stroke, and rightly so. 41 for 1 at the end of the over. 8 to Katich, who received all that over, and 28 to his rather more diminutive partner, batting in a sleeveless sweater, Phillip Hughes.
Well, this duel is going to continue. He's going to come around the wicket, Flintoff. He's having a joke with umpire Doctrove, I think. He'll engage with the umpires. He knows that he needs them on his side occasionally. Flintoff, he doesn't rile the umpire.
And here he comes, round the wicket. 2 steps, 2 gullies and a backward short leg. They go down. Flintoff's in, he bowls, and Hughes played that rather uncertainly off the back foot. Flintoff, in his enthusiastic follow-through, almost comes up to the wicket to pick the ball up. And you feel already that perhaps Hughes is a little bit intimidated by Flintoff, a little bit restricted. He may not...
Well, I would say restricted, I wouldn't say intimidated.
Yeah, all right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He'd be a little bit apprehensive, and he won't have quite the freedom he showed before lunch when the ball's pitched a little short and outside the off stump.
Yeah.
But we will see, and this is the great beauty, isn't it, of this game. Here comes Flintoff in, bowls to Hughes. Oh, and Hughes goes back. It was not wide enough. It was not really short enough, but he made room and hammered it into the ground and got run to the right of mid-off. And Pietersen went across there and fielded, and it wasn't a very secure stroke.
No. Well, he didn't middle it by any stretch of the imagination. There is a big gap sort of square of the wicket on the offside because he hits the ball so well through that area. They had a fielder on the point boundary and just a wide mid-off saving runs on the offside. Now that man has come in to save a single.
42 for 1, and here's Flintoff now to Katich. He's in, he bowls, and Katich turns his run round the corner down to Monty Panesar at fine leg, and just the single. Panesar comes in rather delicately, as is his wont, and returns nicely to Pryor. 43 for 1, 7 to Katich, 29 to Hughes.
I mean, it's quite a big contrast for the bowler, these two left-handers. You've got Hughes, whose instincts and his method is to stay on about leg stump against Flintoff, and then you've got Katich, who takes a huge step across, and he's standing more or less on off stump.
Yes, it presents an interesting change of direction to the bowler. Here is Flintoff now in, bowls to Hughes. Hughes makes a little bit of room for himself there. Did you notice that? He backed away certainly to the leg, got a single, just dropped his wrists on it, played it out easily on the offside, and Swann came in there from mid-off and picked up. So 44 now for 30 to Hughes.
The backing away is an emotive sort of phrase, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I don't think he's backing away out of fear. That's the way he plays. It's unusual, but that's what he does.
And here comes Flintoff again, this time to Katich. Round the wicket, he's in, he bowls outside the off stump. Katich shoulders arms, like bat goes up like a periscope, and through it goes to Pryor. I must say he's an intriguing batsman.
It is.
Little we've seen of him already, this Phil Hughes. And he doesn't half like to get on with it. And there's something very exhilarating, isn't there, that communicates itself when you get opening batsmen who really go for it. One thinks of Cammy Smith of the West Indies and various others over the years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a while ago. Bob Barber became a player like that, didn't he? In the 60s.
Yes. And Flintoff it is. In once more to Katich. He's up there now, he bowls. Oh, and Katich twiddles us away on the for one on the leg side. And Broad it was from mid-on to his left who fielded it, and they got a single. So 45 for no wicket, 8 to Katich and 30 to Hughes.
Just to emphasise what I was saying earlier on, that last delivery, Katich played it to the left of a wide mid-on, so just in front of square on the leg side. If Hughes had been facing that ball, in all probability it would have gone just to the left of gully on the offside.
Yes.
But Hughes is unusual. The standard procedure for opening batsmen especially is make them bowl at you, make them bowl at your pads. Don't play risky offside shots, but work the ball off the legs. That's what Jeffrey used to do. Hughes has completely rewritten the manual.
It Broad now coming into Katich round the wicket. He bowls. Katich goes back, plays that away to wide of mid-on. Panesar is quickly there, but they run a single, and that again is exactly what Vic has been saying. Katich moving across his stumps, getting his runs on the leg side. And I think soon we may see some Strauss deciding to rearrange his field when these batsmen change ends.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? They play in such different manners. I mean, the only change we've seen so far is that they put a fielder on the boundary on the offside for Hughes. He's so strong to there. Ravi Bopara is going back to the just behind square on the offside, very wide third man, if you like, or point on the boundary. Broad
it is, in past Alim Dar, the umpire. He's there, he bowls. Oh my goodness me, that was an attempted cut to a ball that was too close to him and too far up by Hughes. He didn't get a touch, it went through to Pryor. That again was a less than convincing stroke. Here's Broad, round the wicket, in, bowls to Hughes, and Hughes goes to cut that, and it is stopped there by Pietersen in the gully. He didn't pick it up cleanly on the bounce. It went just a yard behind him, and even then, that ball was not hit with quite the authority that some of the strokes. Mind you, it's not as easy for when Broad's bowling round the wicket. The ball is slanting in naturally towards the left-handed Hughes, and so cutting it away, it's a little bit harder. It's tucking him up all the time because the natural angle of delivery is bringing it into the right-hander. And Broad it is again, in. He bowls now to Hughes, who tries to turn that round the corner. It was a shortish one. He hit him on the pad, and Cook comes in from backward square leg and field, just picks up, and there is no run. The score then, 46 for no wicket Australia, in reply to England's 435. 99 runs being accrued by England's last 3 wickets this morning in a most spectacular display of batting, especially from Graeme Swann, who finished, I think, with 47. He played wonderfully well. And then, of course, came this Australian reply, led magnificently so far by Phil Hughes. Broad is in now. He bowls Katich, attempt to york him, and he digs that out. I said to Katich, it was to Hughes, I'm sorry. He dug it out, just played it out back on the offside, and there was no run. And the tension's certainly really boiling here. It's terrific. I must say, Cardiff have been wonderfully lucky. Not only have they presented a marvellous stadium for their first test, but they've had a cricket match to match it, which is so wonderful. So far they have, anyway, in a day and a third, or whatever it is. Broad it is again, in to Hughes. He's up to the wicket, he bowls, and that's a short one. Hughes tries to turn it round the corner, gets in a bit of a tangle. It goes to Cook there at backward square leg, and there's no run. And the Flintoffs, another effect of Flintoffs 2 overs at the other end. He's communicated itself to Broad, who is suddenly bowling much more like it, isn't he, at these two batsmen? The end of the over, 46 for no wicket, 10 to Katich and 30 to Hughes.
Well, he's bending his back, is Broad. That was 91 miles an hour, that one. And he's coming round the wicket now. He started over the wicket, I think, with the new ball. He wants to tuck Hughes up, not give him too much room to release those arms. So he's bowling as aggressively as he can, but not quite as aggressively as Flintoff.
Flintoff still has no short mid-wicket to save that single. He's in now to Katich. He bowls, and Katich doesn't move inside the line there. That was short outside the off stump. He was moving across, as is his wont, but he stopped and pulled away. He goes rather aggressively down the wicket and gives it a bit of a prod. An aggressive Gardner. And the score stays on 46 for no wicket. And Flintoff's last ball, 94 miles an hour. So a seagull flies across behind the arm, enjoying it too, as in the sun. Flintoff is in now. He's up to the wicket. He's there. He bowls to Katich. Katich shoulders arms. Flintoff's got his race, corrected his line, hasn't he, now to bowl to Katich? He was bowling too much at him. If you bowl at Katich's middle stump, he's going to pick up runs to mid-wicket. But if you bowl outside the off stump, he's going to have to think.
Yep, I mean, Flintoff he's tearing, and this is 94, 93, that last delivery. So it's 5 overs for Flintoff and no more than that. And then he's got options, though. He's got options, Strauss. He can revert to the slow bowlers, the
spinners,
in a way that Ponting was less confident to do.
And it's Flintoff again, coming in to Katich, round the wicket. He's there now, and he bowled. Oh, that's a bouncer. And then Katich was moving across his stumps, saw it was short, ducked underneath it. It's hummed over the nape of his neck, and then went thumping into the gloves of Pryor. The ball thumps in rather than sinks into Pryor's gloves. He is that sort of a keeper. Sometimes I think of Jack Russells and Alan Knotts and people like that. The ball just sinks. It seems you don't notice it going into the glove, and it's almost a part of the glove. But with Pryor, as with Rod Marsh in his early days, it's clink, clunk, clonk. Here comes Flintoff now, in round the wicket, past the umpire. There he bowls, and Katich goes back to that one on about off stump, plays it out to Bopara in the covers, and there's no run. Bopara returns that one fiercely to Pryor, where Pryor hadn't nearly come up to the stumps, but it's a nice bit of aggression. It shows keeps the batsmen on their toes. Flintoff walks voraciously back to his mark. He can't wait to get in the next one. Oh, a pigeon flies over the box. The first one that's flown over our box all match. A rather white pigeon. A dirty white pigeon. And here comes Flintoff once more into Katich. He's up to the stumps now. He bowls. Katich cut all dry. Oh, well.
That was a
catch. It was, wasn't it? And Flintoff holds his hands to his head. He hit it back. Flintoff got a right hand to it and couldn't hold on. And is very disappointed, but it would have been a wonderful catch if he held it. It really won in your follow-through.
Yeah.
When you get a low one like that, he just got a hand to it. It was smacked in. And
it's the first time he's really pitched it up, and it nearly stuck. He was only 2 or 3 inches off the ground, down by his right ankle.
Oh, dear.
It just came out.
Flintoff once again. In now, past umpire Trove, he's there to the wicket, he bowls Katich, and Katich just drops this one down in front of him, and the end of another marvellously aggressive over. A very hard dropped return catch. A bit of luck for Australia. Katich has 10, and the other end 30 to Hughes. It's 46 for no wicket, and after another thought from Victor Marks, it will be Chris Martin-Jenkins.
Well, that's quick bowling from Flintoff, and maiden over. With that one chance, he's been banging the ball into the pitch against Katich, who's played him well. It's not so easy, no matter how slow the surface, to pick up the ball when it's coming at you at 94 miles an hour. But when he did get the ball full, as a variation, Katich still loitering a little bit on the back foot, drove firmly, very hard chance, but Flintoff thinks he could have caught it.
Broad to continue the attack from round the wicket to the left-handed Hughes, who plays a compact stroke to mid-on. He's played very few shots on the onside so far. Hasn't been given much anywhere near his legs, but that looked secure enough. And no doubt he'll become, with time, an even more effective onside player. But he's being tested at the moment. Not quite such a hostile field, with 2 slips, 2 gullies, a backward and a forward short leg. Now we got 2 slips gully and forward short as Broad bows, and a strange stroke from Hughes gets him a run to mid-wicket, where Panesar was patrolling from mid-on, but he was initially there, I think, expecting it short again, and he went to the onside and then had to shuffle back to get into any sort of position to play it again into that onside. One more run to Hughes. 47 for no wicket as Broad round the wicket to the left-handed Katich, who chops it down through where about 3rd or 4th slip would have been for 4 runs. There's no third man, as there so often is not, and it was a perfectly good stroke. That it was a late
cut, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, not really a classical late cut, but a steer, really, wasn't it?
He knew what he was doing, though. He knew there was a gap down there.
Big gap there, and batsmen often have a sense of where the gap is. But it's a good ball from Broad in the sense that it got up towards the splice from not all that short. He bowled a lot round the wicket in the 2020 World Cup. This is for different reasons. He goes in and bowls just outside the off stump, left alone. Flintoff round the wicket to Haddin was one of the features of that series 4 years ago. Less so perhaps in Australia 2 years ago or 18 months ago, but Broad not really giving it much chance to swing at the moment, and they're staying on the back foot most of the time, these two. Strauss and Flintoff at first and second slip. Pietersen in the gully as Broad bows on a fuller length this time, and that'll be 3 runs to maybe 2 only to Katich. They'll look for a third as Panesar running back from mid-on picks it up and throws, but they do get 3. Good running. Broad looking a little I'm not sure whether that was a sort of feigned appeal or a little disappointment that the throw didn't get in there quite a second quicker, and they wouldn't have come back for the third. Katich up to 17, 54 for no wicket, and emphasis there that this is a very easy paced pitch, and actually there's not a great deal of margin for error. You've got to get the length dead right for it not to be relatively easy to score either off front foot or back. Very square short leg Cook now for Hughes as Broad around the wicket bowls short in towards his ribs, and he steers it down out of harm's way. I don't say it was all along the ground, but it dropped to the ground pretty quickly, and his bat was on top of the ball. The blade was keeping it down. A single to long leg. Swann the fielder. So Hughes beginning to work it out. We all know it's a very important start to the series for him and for England, who know he's a danger man. He's 32 not out. It's 55 for 1 at the end of the over.
Yeah, I mean, he's got off to a great start, really. He's got Flintoff with his gander up.
Flintoff bowls and he cuts and misses. He didn't really move his feet even back there. He just stayed where he was, down around the middle and leg, and carved at it.
It's good fun, isn't it?
There's a little huddle of England fielders there in the gully region where that might have gone if he'd middled it. Went over the top edge, actually. And they're all discussing.
We better be on red alert, they're saying.
Yeah. Pietersen, Panesar, who's at cover and looks as though he wants to make a third gully.
I think that's probably Bopara, isn't it? I'm hoping it's Bopara.
I beg your pardon, sorry. It is. In comes Pietersen again, and that cuts back off the seam and goes over the middle and off stumps, a long way over it, as Hughes had rocked back in 2 minds there whether to cut at it or leave it. And as he saw it leaping back at him, he decided to leave it, and Katich, much more experienced, decides it's time to go up and have a word. They play together, of course, for New South Wales, where Katich has been prolific since the last Ashes series. Earned his place back in the side. In comes Flintoff and bowls to Hughes, who plays a typical Hughes shot back towards the leg stump and hitting it off the back foot in the backward point region, and it went straight to Swann at gully, and there was no run. Just while Flintoff's walking back, you asked Malcolm an impossible question, I thought. when was the last total as high as England's 400 odd, 435, and a batsman didn't score 70. We'll get the answer in a moment. In comes Flintoff and bowls to Hughes, who cuts, and that's going to be 4 runs. Got well on top of that one, found the gap between the gullies and the slips. And another blood to Hughes in this fascinating duel. He goes to 36 and a total of 59. And the answer, Malcolm?
Well, I had a look in the books. 5-2-4 by India against New Zealand in Kanpur 1976-7, where M. Amarnath actually scored 70. He was the top scorer with 70.
Right.
But the redoubtable Steve Petard has come to my rescue, and he tells me that 4-7-1 by Australia against Sri Lanka in Colombo 1992, where Devi Poon was the top scorer with 68.
Well done, Steve, and you. And there's your answer, Victor.
Well, thank you. I didn't think I'd get that answer. I better make a note, actually, now, having asked the question.
That'll appear in one of Vic's blogs or in the paper tomorrow. In comes Flintoff now over the wicket to Hughes and buzz outside his legs, and Hughes goes the other way. Reasonably enough, he goes towards the offside and lets it go down the leg side. But you don't often, on a pitch as slow as this, get all but 2 fielders behind the bat, as England have at the moment. Bopara is just backward of point, and there are only Cook just forward of short leg and Broad at mid-off in front of the wicket. Otherwise, all behind, as if it's a fast Australia pitch. In comes Flintoff and bowls to Hughes, who rocks towards the leg side, gets up onto his toes and miscues really into the ground. The ball runs to Broad at mid-off. So we got Cook at forward shot. Anderson is at leg slip, equivalent of where about third slip would be on the offside. A position beginning to come back into vogue. An obvious place really, often, but for a long time out of fashion. 2 orthodox slips, 2 gullies, and backward point. Here's Flintoff from the River Taff end. He bowls to Hughes, who's caught behind off the inside edge. Good catch by Pryor. Flintoff raises both hands to the sky in a characteristic gesture of triumph, and Hughes flashing once too often. Must be said to have lost that first fiery duel. Was a good catch by Pryor, and England have struck blood after lunch. 60 for 1. Hughes goes for 36. Caught Pryor, bowled Flintoff.
Well, Flintoff, like a colossus, puts his arms to the sky, to the big stand away to our right. What a duel that was. It seems that the shift from around the wicket to over the wicket helped him there. It's an unusual dismissal off the inside edge to be caught by the keeper. We should note, too, that was an excellent catch by Pryor. Remember, this ball's coming down at 90-odd miles an hour, and inside edge catches are not what he's looking for. He's looking for the outside edge by and large. But that change of angle, Hughes, I mean, he's going to fascinate us throughout this series, because I'm not sure I've ever seen an opening batsman in this era play with his method. It's a curious method to go for the ball outside that off stump, exposing your outside edge to the slip cord and time again, but so far it's worked really well for him. He's not going to desert that method, so we've got a lot to look forward to in this series. England, I reckon, will be winning the battle if we find Hughes at the next Test match adopting a considerably different technique. That's how he does it.
I think
either it works like that or it won't work at all. He's got to go back to the state and change, but so far it's worked terrifically for him.
We'll come back to it. The new batsman is Ponting, and here's Broad starting a new over to Katich. Appeal for LBW, not out. Missing leg stump from the angle at which Broad bowled it from around the wicket, I suspect. But worth a shout. Katich does come right in front of his stumps, often. Lots of O's being made by the lips of the slip fielders. Ooh, that was close. It did actually... I think it even pitched outside leg stump.
No, I don't. You always think it pitches outside leg stump. It never does. That's close. It's close. He'll think it's going down, and that's probably a reasonable decision. But
Hawkeye will no doubt say it was hitting. Anyway, Broad bowls again. That's fences at that, Katich. and misses it, and that's unlucky for Broad. Wasn't a good shot. He was unsettled by the appeal, maybe the dismissal at the end of the last over. The atmosphere here is tremendous.
It's like the 71st minute at the Millennium Stadium. Wales 1 point ahead.
Yes. Or even, Colosseum and Christians going to the Lions comes to mind. Broad comes in round the wicket and bowls to Katich, who plays a secure defensive stroke, and Broad follows through and underarms the ball towards Pryor. Just going back to Hughes and whether he'll have to modify, what he surely will have to do is to cut less often, particularly when a bowler is fresh and on top.
Well, I'm going to bow to a more senior batsman on that. My instincts are, actually, that's the way he plays.
Oh, yes.
It's unorthodox, and basically he's got to stick to that, and any modifications have got to be slight. He's got to trust himself.
Broad bows again. That's just outside the off stump, angling back in towards the off stump, and is left alone.
I should add, I've seen him play live once now. I've seen him on the telly a bit. Someone who's seen a lot more of him is going to come in.
Well, it's one of the rarities of modern cricket these days, because we see so much international cricket, and indeed so much of it is televised, that seeing a player with a reputation coming in new to a new audience is a very exciting thing. And Hughes is obviously a highly talented young cricketer. In comes Broad, and that's nice stroke by Katich, a characteristic one, a turn of the wrists to a half volley, which he's chipped through mid-on for 3, thus exposing Ponting for the first time to the bowling at 63 for 1. So at the moment, 372 runs behind England's 435 all out. And if you didn't hear, Broad was out for 19, Anderson 26, Panesar 4, and Swann made 47 not out. Ponting was booed a little as he came in, which is stupid and not what cricket should be about. Heaven knows why, but he won't be in any way put off by that, I'm sure. And it was only a small section of the crowd who booed him, but he's done nothing to deserve that. That doesn't mean, however, that England won't be hostile. Broad bowls to him. First ball of the series, hits him on the pad. Big appeal for LBW. Playing a shot just outside the off stump, I suggest, Ian Chappell. Not out.
Yeah, we got a pretty good view here, and I'd say that was the reason, just slightly outside the line of off stump when it hit him. But the good news for Stuart Broad is that the ball did swing back into him a little. Probably maybe just swung a little and then kept going off the seam, but some movement there, some encouragement for the quick bowlers. And boy, Andrew Flintoff has really changed the game since he came on. Not only the fact that he's bowled so well, but it's really got Broad going, and he's bowled. I mean, he's a totally different bowler after lunch to what he was before lunch. Going back to your comment to Victor, Victor's quite right. He can't afford to change. He can't afford to be taking that cut shot away, because that's his great strength. Right. If he starts doing that, then he's giving in to the bowlers, and he's giving the bowlers an even greater advantage. He's got to make a couple of other adjustments, but it shouldn't be subtracting shots. Shouldn't be one of the options.
Here's Broad and bowls on Flintoff and bowls on a very full length to Katich, trying to surprise him with a Yorker. Katich played it securely enough to mid-off. I wasn't really suggesting that he should cut it out altogether, but merely that he should use it a bit more judiciously when a bowler's fresh and, really going for him, as Flintoff has been.
You can't bat like that, though. If your natural instinct, and if it's a natural shot, you don't. That's how you get out, is thinking, will I or won't I? Yeah, that's when you get yourself out. If it's natural, you just do it. And I mean, the less you think about batting really while you're out there, the better off you are. I mean, as Graeme Pollock once said, it's a see the ball, hit the ball game.
Yep. Flintoff under a cloudy sky bowls on a full length from round the wicket to the left-handed Katich, who's keeping a secure end up here, but who did give a half chance to Flintoff off his own bowling. If that had stuck,
it would have been a miraculous catch.
It would have been.
No, it wouldn't have been miraculous. It would have been a fantastic catch.
Yep.
For a big guy like that, charging in to get down. The fact that he almost caught it was an athletic performance on its own, I thought. Amazing.
I don't think there's such things as paranoid Australians, but if there were, they might feel it's just our luck. that Flintoff looks to be back to his best again. Just when we arrive, in comes Flintoff, goes outside the off stump, is left alone, having done not very much because he's been injured so often in the last couple of years. But of course, he was not at his best in the last Ashes series, which is one reason why it was such a one-sided affair.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing at this level, and particularly if you're an Australian player coming up against England, you should be buoyed by the fact that Flintoff is out there and that he's bowling well, because as a batsman, when you come in and you're batting against a really good bowler, it heightens the senses, or it should heighten the senses.
Flintoff to Katich again. Katich with his long step across the crease, over the wicket, and no ball called by Billy Doctorow, so Australia go to 64 for 1. Hughes caught prior bowl Flintoff 36. England all out 435.
I don't care what Hughes batting coach or anybody else says about that movement of his back foot back towards the leg side. It's natural and all that. I think he's going to have, or not I think, I'm absolutely certain he's going to have problems against good bowlers like Flintoff if he keeps making that movement. That's one thing he's got to adjust.
Flintoff is in, and Katich goes absolutely in the opposite direction. He goes over to the offside in an almost exaggerated way, and that one zipped up towards the splice of his bat, and he did well to keep it down. There are 2 slips and 2 gullies. Flintoff bowling with real fire here. In fact, he got an inside edge there into his tummy, Katich, and the bat was somewhere away from his body, so if that had gone the other way, it could easily have taken an outside edge. Flintoff, on a cloudy afternoon, bowls the left-handed Simon Katich outside the off stump, follows through a long way, really relishing being back in an Ashes contest. Andrew Flintoff, he had a miserable time as captain in Australia, and it didn't end happily for him in any way, although England did get the win the one-day series, so I suppose it was better than nothing. But he does look like a man in his element again now, as he back heels towards the sponsor's logo, with the sight screen and the trees and the river behind him. He comes running in with a short leg hovering, a leg slip, bowls to Katich outside the off stump, well left by Katich, judging where his off stump was. Fascinating cricket, red-blooded cricket. Australia 64 for 1 in response to England's 435. And Jonathan is going to come in and join you. Ian?
Thank you, Christopher. Just going on with that point about Phil Hughes and the movement back towards the leg side, it just creates problems for really good bowlers. It creates a problem for the batsman because you can get into such a terrible position so easily. Obviously, my old coach, when I was a kid, obviously thought it was so important that he used to put a bat behind me, and if I trod on the bat, I was in trouble.
Broad starts a new over. Ponting lets the first ball go by from a good length outside the off stump. A groan there from Strauss, who raised his arms in optimism at first slip. 2 others alongside him and a gully. A pointer mid-off, short mid-wicket, mid-on, and a long leg. 1 wicket down, Australia, after that tremendous contest. Bruising encounter, really, between Hughes and Flintoff. It'll be talked about a lot, won't it, that question of the technique?
Yeah, it will.
Broad, hair flopping, moves in, bowls, and again, Ponting lets that go through outside the off stump. But again, you can hear Strauss, a cry of anguish, trying possibly to just get into Ponting's head a bit, that it's too close to leave that, Ricky. I think Ponting's got it lined up pretty well.
I perhaps should explain that bat business a little better. He put it on the ground behind my feet, so that, in other words, if I step back towards the leg side, I trod on the bat and I'd be in trouble. So, and that was at age 5, 6, 7 he was doing that, so obviously that's how important he thought it was.
Yeah. Broad over the wicket, bowls. Ponting turns that away off his hip. He's off the mark, flicking it away through mid-wicket, and collected by Cook, who runs to within about halfway perhaps towards that boundary at mid-wicket. 66 for 1. Well, you see tail-enders doing it, don't you? And it's usually associated with actually not fencing it very much. I mean, I'll put my hand up and say, just occasionally, I mean, not very often. Once or twice in my career I felt I was better off.
Back in the pavilion?
Well, it often speeds up the process of getting back to the
Well,
but it gives us a little bit of room to take them on a bit outside the off stump.
It puts you in a very bad position, really.
Of course it does. In goes Broad, bowls, and that's Ponting playing slightly across his front pad, coming forward. Cook fields it with wicket.
I mean, I'll turn it around the other way. When you were bowling, I bet you didn't mind if you saw someone taking that step back to. I mean, what my old coach Lynn Fuller used to say to me was, mate, if the bowler can see him, he feels like he can hit him. If he can't see him, he doesn't feel quite so confident he can hit him.
There's one batsman who I've bowled at, and you and I both know and love Andy Roberts very well.
Yep.
One man that Andy couldn't bowl at, to drive him mad. Off goes Broad outside the off stump, and Ponting lets it go. And in fact, Graham Gooch tells a story of the same man actually completely perplexing Malcolm Marshall, who may or may not have played against Brian Hardy, the opening batsman for Essex.
I remember the name.
He was
Andy's kryptonite, was he?
Outside the leg stump, and mowing and cutting and carving, opening batting.
Yeah.
And so he in a way, I suppose, was the one top order batsman. Saywags a bit leg stump, but doesn't actually retreat, does he? Wayne Larkins used to be quite leg stump, but again didn't actually retreat. In goes Broad, and Ponting drives, lovely stroke, stretching forward, driving through extra cover. There's Monty. We haven't seen him running like this for a while, dashing out towards deep extra cover. A lot of energy, not a huge amount of speed, but he is going to pick the ball up just before it hits the boundary edge. And they got 4 anyway. Poor old Monty. They ran 4. And Broad looks over his shoulder at Panesar. Well, he puts a huge amount of effort in. I mean, it must be exhausting for him, arms and legs going out the clappers. But actually, speed over the ground, it doesn't quite all add up somehow. But anyway, 4 runs to Ponting, lovely shot, 70 for 1. He's on 6. And Katich has 20. The 1 wicket taken by Flintoff. There's Hughes, who was caught, and it was a good catch too by Pryor, as we know, had his problems in the Caribbean. He changed his direction, it was the inside edge, and he took it low down very well. And Flintoff is also, I mean, he's good against left-handers too, Flintoff.
Yeah.
Always has been.
That was a very important catch for Pryor and for England, because they badly need Pryor in this side, England.
Indeed. Deep point now. Katich lets a short ball go down again, well gobbled up by Pryor. Tumbling to his right, taking it one-handed. That was a pretty lively ball too. And it kept a little bit low, and Pryor did very well to take that neatly. But you're right, and with 2 spinners in the side, and the talk about Pryor's wicket-keeping, he's going to, the spotlight will be on him, and that's a great start. But they do need Pryor batting at 6.
Well, that's the thing. He's a very, very good batsman at 6. He's very important to them. So it's crucial that he keeps well, because if he starts to drop the odd bloke, and particularly if it's a Ponting who goes on and gets 100, then you start to get the murmuring about, well, we've got to drop this guy. Of course.
Flintoff hurtles in round the wicket, and that's a nice shot from Katich this time, driving through extra cover. A little of a collision there with Flintoff as he runs his first. I'll come back for a second. Bopara throws the ball back, 72 for 1. And as we've seen in the past, once it starts to affect wicket-keeping confidence, your batting can go as well.
Then it can run into the batting. One thing I don't like about Stuart Broad's cricket is I've seen him twice now already have a go at Monty for his fielding. Now, you're quite right. Monty is trying like hell. I mean, if a guy's loafing, then I don't mind the bowler having a go at him. But Monty is not loafing. He's just not very fast, as you said. And then he exacerbates the problem because he runs past the ball and virtually comes back to get it. So that costs him a bit more time. And then he hasn't got a strong arm. But he is trying like hell.
Oh, yeah.
And Stuart Broad's not, he shouldn't be ripping at him.
Katich, way outside the leg stump. He'll move back in. There he goes as Flintoff fires that down outside the off stump. And Katich plays no shot. Well, I'd guess that on most grounds in the world that would have been 4 anyway, because it's an enormously long boundary here. It's a funny shaped ground, this one, and of course we're all getting used to it, but with a very short boundary straight down towards the river. And the one here also is quite short, but then it's stretched. I mean, it is an oval really, isn't it? Stretched out towards the sides, and so on the diagonal it's a very long boundary indeed.
I wouldn't have signed for Glamorgan with those boundaries on the side.
Here's Flintoff, and Katich plays and misses. Past the off stump and past the outside edge it went. The crowd behind Flintoff, we heard the trumpeter as well urging him on. Listen to the crowd. They love Andrew Flintoff. It's great to see him playing for England again. He is this talismanic figure who gives it absolutely everything with the ball. He's quick, he's fiery, he's hostile, utterly wholehearted, but unfortunately rather fragile with it, and that's the danger. You know, every time he bowls, you cross your fingers. 93 miles an hour, the last one, and he's rushing in again. Bowls, Katich forward, drives with a bottom hand in that. Well stopped, a diving save there by Broad. And Flintoff glares in Katich's direction before turning and marching back with that obvious swing of the arms again towards the taff. 72 for 1. This is the 19th over. It's been a tremendously entertaining day today. It really has. And, well, if the Welsh, the people of Cardiff, are new to Test cricket, I think on the strength of what they've seen so far, they'll be back for some more.
Well, I was just going to say that, OK, it's their first test and obviously everyone's excited, but they've really got into the contest extremely well.
Flintoff bowls, Katich shots a lovely stroke, driving in with a bit of bottom hand, again a clip straight down the ground, and that's no mean shot against a man bowling at 93 miles an hour. But not much foot movement, but just a very good timing, and that's Katich's trademark shot. He does play straight down the ground really well, gets in a good position, and that was a terrific shot from outside the off stump. He's cuffed it away through mid-on.
It was a very good shot. The other important thing about the crowd participation, it's always been, you know, they obviously understand the game because they can tell when the contest is really raging, and you know, they saw the humour in the lower order England players today, slapping the ball around and scoring quickly and scoring in unorthodox ways. So obviously you can tell from the crowd's reaction that they're knowledgeable as far as the game of cricket is concerned, because they've really got into it in the right way at the right time.
Now Broad is bowling to the right-handed Ponting, who pulls him from outside the off stump. It was short, not a bouncer, more of a long hop really, and well, on a slow pitch, Ponting is so strong on anything short and hit that away very well indeed. 80 for 1, and still the runs flow. It's been a tremendous day, and this on a pretty slow pitch that we thought yesterday wouldn't help stroke play very much, but the ball's gone around the park today. Tailenders really enjoying themselves for England, led by Graeme Swann, but even James Anderson in on the act. And now, even with that big score behind them, 4:35, Australia have begun very positively indeed. 39 runs so far in this session, is that right? Malcolm's passing a note over. Hang on, in goes Broad and bowls, and that's driven by Ponting. Broad tries to stop it, and Panesar's there at mid-off.
No, England scored 99 before lunch, and Australia 39 before lunch. So that's
gotcha.
the
138
for the full session. Yeah,
that was an amazing session. If only 25 overs, wasn't it? 138.
Yeah, no, it was
incredible.
It was a very good session. I must say, I'm a bit surprised. Maybe Jimmy Anderson doesn't want to bowl at this end, but you know, I would have thought I'd be bowling Jimmy Anderson ahead of Broad, particularly with Flintoff bowling so well at the other end.
Broad wide of the crease, bowls to Ponting, who stretches for the very deliberate raising of the bat, the front pad thrust down the pitch and collected by Pryor. Which way the wind? Actually, isn't much wind, but looking at the flags, is there? So that's pretty much irrelevant. There's not much of a slope, so I think probably happy enough bowling either end here, aren't he? Really, I suppose the spinner will have the taff in his mind at the far end, I guess.
Yeah. But, you know, I would have thought Jimmy Anderson would want to be bowling with Flintoff bowling so well at the other end. There's plenty of opportunities.
Broad moves in, bowls. Ponting gets it away from around that pad area again. Broad's holding his head in his hands. He'll get 2 runs. The ball goes away through square leg. That's an area that Ponting looks vulnerable, but then he's such a good player, of course, that he just picks that ball off from straight. He's run at mid and off, middle stump, which is why the bowler there thought he was going to get through and get him LBW. Plants that foot. But he's got such a great eye, of course, that more often than not, he hits it away.
Just one worrying sign there. Ponting, after running the 2, just stretching back with his right leg. He has had a lot of back trouble. I'm just wondering if it's starting to come in again.
2 slips. Then goes Broad, and Ponting comes forward. Good ball that. Off stump, good length. And Ponting walking in to play a defensive shot. Well, Billy Cooper's playing Waltzing Matilda now, so he's enjoying himself.
That's also not Welsh singing either. That's Australian singing. That's out of tune.
See your former Prime Minister's here, Ian. John Howard, in fact, is popping in to see us at tea time. A bit of a chat. But a cricket lover. 82 for 1. In goes Broad. And Ponting turns that away to mid-wicket. He's wearing a rather unfortunate hat at the moment. Sort of a sun hat. The green one, of course, as you would imagine. The former Prime Minister to be wearing. It's the second longest serving Prime Minister of your country, Ian, isn't he?
Australia 82 for 1 here in Cardiff.
Didn't get your tick in the box last time round? He wasn't in your constituency, I presume, was he?
Ponting's on 12 and Katich is on 26. And the wicket taker is Freddie Flintoff, 1 for 15.
We don't bring politics into Test Match Special, Ian. You're absolutely right for pulling me up. Anyway, he is coming at tea time. And if you're here, Ian, it'd be nice if you can't. Oh, actually, you've got a busy tea time, haven't you? To be fair.
Yes, I'll be out in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, you will.
Or somewhere out there, anyhow. I'm with Virginia May. I'm looking forward to meeting her. Peter's widow. Yeah, who's collecting the cap, obviously, on behalf of Peter.
Yeah. This is the ICC Hall of Fame, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah. And who's the third one? So they did tell me the other day.
Has Jeffrey got one yet?
Jeffrey Boycott?
Yeah.
He would be in the Hall of Fame, whether they've actually presented him with the cap yet or not. But there's 55. It's the old FICA, the Players Association Hall of Fame, and now the ICC have taken it over. So there was 55 guys in the FICA Hall of Fame, and what the ICC are doing is awarding caps to all those 55.
Anderson's in the attack, but he's replaced Flintoff. Now this is pushed away by Katich for a couple of runs. That's possibly only one, actually. It will be one. Bopara rushing back there from point towards extra cover to field and bringing Ponting down on strike. So change in the bowling. Flintoff is out of the attack, and it's a bit of a long arm, I'll leave for the bowling figures. Sorry, we've got a rather unusual setup here, but it's because of the window. 6 overs, 2 maidens, 1 for 15 of fire and brimstone from Big Freddie, and he's having a breather. Actually, I'm relieved to see Strauss taking him off after 6. It's such a temptation with Flintoff to just keep him going, but they've got to be so careful with him.
No, I think that's a good spell. The brain's just come good. Tom Graveney is the third member who's getting his cap. Yeah.
I remember Viv getting his in Antigua. It's I've come to say Anderson bowls. Ponting hit on the pad. Oh, almost a little inside edge, I reckon, in that, because Anderson started to appeal. They all went up behind the wicket, but I reckon Ponting, who looked pretty much in front of his stumps there, just got a little edge before the ball hit him in the pads. Looking at hot spot, there you go, you can see it just on that inside edge and into the pad. 83 for 1.
You're about to say that the cap will match my shirt, eh?
It will. It will match your shirt. I mean, not a lot does, frankly, but I think that cap will do, because it's very blue. It's a bit like a prep school cap. Here's Anderson bowling, and back goes Ponting, playing back up the pitch in Anderson Field. It's got it's quite delicate, little bits of gold braid, and it's the sort of cap that Fred Truman would have aimed for.
It's me then. It's delicate.
Well, I don't think that can ever be said about you. Let's be honest. But it will go with the shirt, rather more than that tie does. 83 for 1.
At least I've got a tie on.
Yes, I've gone relaxed today. 83 for 1. Outdressed by an Australian. What on earth's going on? In comes Anderson. Bowls driven by Ponting. Nice shot. Hasn't timed it. And only be a couple, I suspect. Although... It's a long chase out towards that boundary again. Bopara will get there just within a yard or so of the groundsman's entrance down there at deep extra cover. Ponting picks up 3, 86 for 1. And like England, Australia rattling along at this, well, it's not a frantic pace, but it's a very positive pace indeed. And talking about the influence of one-day cricket and how little of the longer version of the game Test cricketers play these days. They play their Test matches, but they play very little first-class cricket, and therefore there's a lot of one-day influence on the game, full stop now, of international cricketers, and it's certainly showing in the way people are batting. In comes Anderson, bowls, Katich forward, plays up towards mid-on, it doesn't get there, it's intercepted by Collingwood at mid-wicket.
Yeah, the game, I mean, probably when you arrived at the ground on the first morning and looked at that brown pitch, it would be an easy temptation to say, oh, this will be a draw, but the game is moving along so quickly that you figure that there's going to be a result in this game for sure.
But it must influence batsmen, doesn't it? I mean, if you are used to playing games, and innings at a pace. Anderson bowls, and that's flicked away by Katich uppishly. They try to catch it. Monty's under pressure down there. Oh, great cheer. He had to stop that on the second or third bounce. It went down pretty quickly. And we've seen Monty embarrassed by ones like that before, but not this time. He's obviously been honing his fielding skills in Northampton. 87 for 1. And he'll be looking forward to coming on and bowling very soon, I'm sure. More thoughts from Ian Chappell, and then Jim Maxwell.
Well, it has been some very good cricket. Flintoff really set the tone for England straight after lunch, and that lifted the England side. Stuart Broad bowled a lot better at the other end before lunch. He'd got smacked around the park quite a bit, so it's been a very good session for England. But Australia, as Jonathan just said, still playing very positively. Katich is looking pretty solid. Ponting, after a little bit of uncertainty early on, he now looks to be settling into his game, and we're going to see Graeme Swann coming back into the attack, replacing Stuart Broad, and he'll be bowling his off spinners to Katich round the wicket with a slip in the gully in.
Yes, he bowled 2 overs prior to lunch as he comes up and bowls at Katich, who jabs and misses. Ball taken by Pryor, snappily knocking off the bails as that ball bounced and turned past the edge of the bat. This gets interesting.
Yeah, that'll be tremendous encouragement for Swann, and not relying on the footmarks from there either. That's coming off the actual pitch, so plenty of turn.
As he shuffles across the crease this time to a ball that's a fraction shorter, and he gets behind it and plays it away on the offside. So 2 slips, the short leg, backward point, cover, short cover, mid-off, mid-on, square leg. And that, yes, the short leg, of course, as he bowls again, just wide, and Katich allows it to pass through outside the off stump. So he's bowling to 6-3 field. Yep, mid-on, square leg, short leg. Around the wicket, and a little bit of spin in the pitch, and the Katich leave again outside the off stump as he hovers and watches at 1-4-87. With Phillip Hughes out for 36, inside edged one that Pryor took very well, moving to his right from Flintoff when the score was 60, which has been about the average of the opening partnerships between those two. Back goes Katich, plays the ball away down towards Panesar at mid-on. And in fact, after Hughes' undistinguished start with the duck in Johannesburg, they've added 38, 184, 55, 58, 57 and 60. Forward comes Katich, hit on the pad. A big appeal for LBW there as he was leaning forward. I thought that was going straight on, I suppose, but umpire Alim Dar was not at all interested. And in fact, he's thirsty. He wants a drink. They're going to bring them out onto the field. 1-4-87. Katich is 15 and 28 rather, and Ponting's 15. Drinks are coming onto the field, and it gives Geoffrey Boycott, who's just settled into the chair, a chance to have a look at what's occurring. Anderson 5 overs for 21, Broad 8 overs for 41, Swann 3 overs for 5 runs, and Flintoff 1 for 15 in that good spell, 6 overs, 2 maidens.
Well, it's another fluctuating day of cricket. I mean, England won the first hour and a half, and then Australia's batsman won the little bit before lunch, and then after lunch, Flintoff was fantastic, as he drew the game back again for England, and then these two again look comfortable. I think the pitch is playing better today. It looked to me as if it's whatever reason it moved a bit in the morning, and then late last night I thought the 2 Australian bowlers bowled really well. Hilfenhaus with a new ball, and the other kid Siddle, they made the ball move around for 10 overs. I mean, Siddle got a beautiful wicket against Pryor, but Hilfenhaus saw some corkers that the played and missed that. And then this morning it did nothing for him. When England sort of played well, played shots, took the game away, the seamers ran in, and I was watching carefully. It really didn't swing. I can't think of anything that really moved off the straight and narrow. I think it's better for batting today. Yes, there's a bit of turn, And I think we have a fluctuating cricket match, and I don't see it changing a lot for certainly the next 2 or 3 days.
So you can see wickets falling often enough to keep up everyone's interest in the thought that this is going to move towards a 5th-day result?
Yeah, I mean, I hope the rain stays away, so whoever wins, gets a win and deserves to win. I mean, if we lose a day to rain, then it's hard work to get a result. But these pitches, when a batsman gets in, you think, oh, this is a good pitch. He plays shots and he scores, and you think this is all right. And then suddenly, you get somebody bowls well or a new batsman, and it changes, and you think, oh, it's a bit in this, for the bowlers. And I think that's how the bowlers feel. I've played on these pitches quite a lot when we used to play a lot of uncovered pitches and that, with rain around in England, which you get besides the decent weather, is it changes from not just day to day, but periods of the day. You can get where the ball does nothing, and then the next minute, a couple of hours later, you think, crikey, it's moving around or it's swinging. And it's this changeability of the match that keeps you interested all the time, whether as a player or a spectator. And touch wood, I think that will go on most of the match, and we should get quite interesting cricket through it.
What are you expecting from Panesar, who hasn't bowled so far and is going to get an opportunity at some point soon, you'd think?
I hope he's going to bowl the way that he's bowled throughout his career, not the way that some people in the media, who probably know so-and-so all about the game, have told him to bowl like Beddy, a bit more flight and guile. Well, yeah, but people like Beddy don't come along every generation. It's like asking somebody to bowl like Shane Warne. He might bowl leg spinners. I think there'll be too many bowl like Shane Warne. We might never see another one again.
After drinks, Anderson bowls. Ponting's on the back foot, and he punches to point where it's well stopped by Bopara, diving to his left and preventing a handful of runs at 1-4-87.
I think it's important to find what you do well. And if you're a good player, which I think Monty is, he's a good player at bowling maidens, bowling tight, and then he'll get his wickets. He's not one of those that's going to tease you out like a Beddy. And I think if he can get 2 or 3 good overs in bowling tight, there'll be some rough outside off stump, particularly against the left-handers.
Anderson with 2 slips, and Ponting forward leaves a ball that just holds its line outside the off stump. I'm looking forward to seeing how they operate in tandem, Panesar and Swann, against Ponting in particular, who, when he's in, is a pretty good player of spin.
Oh, he's a very good player against everything. You can't get his record and performances without being a good player. You've got to be very churlish to try and talk the Australian captain down, because his record says otherwise. He's a very good player.
Anderson comes in towards him, and he pushes forward. He's squared up by a beauty. Hit the pitch and bounced and just missed the edge of the bat. Good bowling.
Yeah, and that's why it's a good pitch, because you feel as a batsman, I can get runs on this, which is good. But you always feel as a bowler, as you're running in, it's just not one of those flat pitches that, you're going to get pasted around the park. You think, I just make this do a bit here with its spinner seam, and I can get a wicket or 2 here, and so it's a good contest.
More of Anderson. He comes into Ponting. Ponting goes back and takes him from the stumps with a good steer to backward square, and they'll take on Panesar's arm. He's getting to the ball. He's doing his best. He picks it up and he gets rid of it, but Ponting, as soon as he saw the ball going in his direction, thought, well, we should get 2, and he did, comfortably.
You see, every time you make the ball move a little bit and do something, you fancy your chance as a bowler, but it's such of a slow surface, a slowish nature, that if you're a little bit wrong in length or line, then you as a batsman, you can knock it off somewhere.
17 to Ponting. It's 1-for-89. Anderson comes in. Ponting forward, plays the ball away down towards mid-off with a good piece of defence. England made 435 and 99 runs this morning, rapidly. So we've seen a very attractive day of batting, with Broad out for 19. Anderson 26, Panesar 4, Swann was 47. Hauritz finished with 3 for 95, but they took the mickey out of him a few times with some reverse sweeps, but he did get the 3 wickets. Anderson comes up, he bowls to Ponting. Ponting goes back and he forces the ball for 4. Beautifully timed through point. He stood up and he got over the ball and he guided it across the hard square to the right of Bopara, and out to the line. 1 for 93. Ponting's 21 and Katich 28 at the end of the over.
See, that was a typical set. It was just a little bit wider than what you want, and although it's a bit short of a length, it gave him width as well, and he played a gorgeous back foot shot. And that's the thing about batting on these. You might have an odd moment or two when it's a bit awkward, you feel the bowler's sort of giving you problems, but then once you get the feel of it, you get in a little bit, you fancy I can get runs on this.
Well, they're looking reasonably well established at the moment. Swann's turning and bouncing the odd ball as he's doing at Katich, getting the ball on the front foot, well forward, pushed it, guided it down to backward point. He's not going to do it every ball, but just here and there he's getting a ball to disturb the batsman's equanimity there as he comes in again and bowls to him, pitching up, leaning forward. Katich pats it back. He's been something of a rock in Australia's batting since he resumed Test match duty last year in the West Indies. He's peeled off a number of hundreds, slow scoring ones at times, but he's looking at a dependable player for the most part here as he goes forward to a quicker ball and sends it back down to the pitch. He's really playing at the peak of his powers in recent years after that dramatic season for his home state New South Wales when he beat all the records, scoring 1,500 runs with a huge triple century. Here comes Katich to drive, and he drives it well. Good save, but short cover by Pietersen. Dropped his hand on it and prevented the ball going away.
If the opening batsman makes 100, even if it's slow, it's very difficult to bowl the side out because it solidifies one end.
Swann around the wicket, Katich forward again, measures it off, square of the wicket on the offside, and it's fielded by Broad.
It's very rare that a side gets bowled out, say, cheapishly, if one of the opening batsmen stays in, you know, because you can't get at anybody else because he's there, and you wear yourself out bowling and bowling.
Swann bowls quicker in near the line of the stumps. Well played by Katich down the pitch. And it's interesting that he's made all his runs in opening partnerships with left-handers. Haddin, Phil Jakes, a forgotten figure it seems in cricket at the moment. Yeah, Jakes made hundreds and then got a back injury, and hopefully he can come back, and now of course he's out there opening with Phillip Hughes.
Is he back playing, Phil Jakes? Because he's a good player.
He came back at the end of last season, but his back wasn't quite right. He struggled. He did struggle to score some runs. So I think he's back in recovery mode. Hopefully he will be recovered for the start of next year, because he's still a player that you have to think about.
We had him at Yorkshire for a year.
Yeah,
good player.
He got some runs, didn't he?
He did indeed. Yeah. He's a very good player.
More of Anderson. He runs into Ponting. Ponting shuffles across and knocks the ball square. Strauss has opted for protection in the deep rather than keeping Bopara up. And the score moves to 94. Malcolm, you've got something?
Yeah, he's up to 22 now, which takes him to 2,000 runs against England.
How many have done that?
He's the 16th to do it.
16th.
Australian, yes.
Yeah.
And the 26th in all Ashes.
Right. And at an average of just under 50, 48.78, which is just under his test average. So another milestone of many for Ricky Ponting. As Anderson bowls to Katich, who's on the shuffle forward again. He knocks the ball away on the offside towards Pietersen, who's collecting it in the gully. And for Katich, they've got a man at deep point as well. Just a slip and a gully, and then a ring of fieldsmen. It's a cool afternoon. It's a little cloudy, but it's dry. No rain around, apparently. And let's hope it stays that way, because we're enjoying the cricket here. 1 for 94. Anderson bowls. Katich leans, drives, pushes, more than drives away into the covers where it's fielded out there by Bopara. So what do you make of the Katich method? He seems to be able to draw bowlers to bowl at him, and then he can whack it through the onside. If you were bowling to him or captaining the bowlers, what would you be suggesting?
I was going to say, before I get to that I think he's a tighter, better player now than when he came 4 years ago.
Yep. Anderson bowls to Katich. Katich shuffles across and gets in line and plays to cover.
I've seen him say that. I've seen quotes that he said that he's a better player now, that the reverse swing and around the wicket gave him problems like it did all your other left-handers in 2005. But I wanted to see for myself, and I've seen enough today where he moves his feet, he plays tighter and closer to the pad, doesn't go at it too early. That was the problem with your left-handers in 2005. They took the ball early, which you do in Australia on harder, bouncy pitches.
Anderson again, and is clipped away by Katich behind square. He'll pick up a run, 2. And taking on Panesar comfortably again as he lobs the ball back. Katich to 30 and the score to 96.
I think I'll be looking to give Panesar a ball, take Swann off. I don't think Swann's done anything wrong at all. He's bowled all right, but I would look to get Panesar into the game just to... I see how Katich bats against a left-arm spinner who's bowling it back into you, and if he hits the footholes, you have to play it. Because it's going to hit the wickets, and you can't just kick it away.
Anderson from the River Taff end bowls a ball that's in line, and Katich is across and defending it down the pitch. Billy Doctrove says that's over. 1 for 96 Australia in reply to that imposing total of England's 435.
But I think England missed a trick, a really big trick. There's no doubt in my mind it was crying out for Flintoff to open the bowling. Yeah. And I said so on TV, which I do as well, that this is crazy. I mean, you know, we all know about 2005, the swing or reverse swing, whatever, with the new ball, with the old ball, that the left-handers, with our guys going around the wicket and swinging it, you were in trouble with the left-handers. We have one guy who caused some of that trouble, Flintoff, playing more than anybody, and we wait till Phillip Hughes gets 28 not out or something before we get Flintoff off. Katich hardly gets a ball. He caused Katich, like the other left-handers, lots of problems. So the first thing you want to do is bound to play psychologically on Katich's mind. I think I'm a better player, but I have to go and prove it against the guy who caused me problems. Even if Katich succeeds, he's bound to be the back of the mind, because look, if a guy's got me out, I'm thinking, you know, next time I play him, he's going to come at me, and I don't want to be a sucker, do I? I don't want to be embarrassed and get out again.
Yep. In goes Swann to bowl to Ponting. He pushes away down the offside. So you think that message might be through for the second innings? That
we'll be telephoning from here saying, for crying out loud, get him on.
Swann's over the wicket at Ponting here. Ponting's on the stretch, sends it away on the offside.
The way Katich has played, though, I don't think he would have been as easy to get out, even if Flintoff had opened. But it would have been the right thing to do, because Flintoff bowled against him and was successful 4 years ago.
Yeah.
To just try him out psychologically. And when you're on naught playing somebody who's got you out a few times, it's much harder than if you've got 10 or 15 runs before the bowl.
Here's Swann as Ponting is back behind a ball that was pushed through with a bit of turn. A slip, leg slip, short leg, short, mid-wicket. And the man in there, Pietersen, just takes a step to his left. Swann goes in, forward, Ponting again, watching the ball carefully. Ponting was saying the other day, he's tried to impress on his batsman and on himself that against the slower bowling, you've got to get yourself in before you start thinking about shots, something they didn't do all the time against Paul Harris from South Africa.
No, they went after shots. I was watching.
Early. Silly point in there now, Ponting forward, pushes it via Cook at silly point away on the offside to Flintoff at point.
I mean, Paul Harris is a bit better bowler than a few years ago, but sorry, he's not exactly Shane Warne, Bill O'Reilly or Laker and Wardle.
They wanted to take him on and they didn't, as Ponting gets a ball flighted and he's thinking of launching, but he doesn't, and it goes away towards mid-on. A maiden over bowl by Graeme Swann, who's had a good day. 47 not out, waving his bat around to good effect, and he's bowling impressively. 1 for 96 with Katich 30 and Ponting 22.
I think they've looked very solid, the two Australian batsmen. The good thing about them, Katich, when he gets forward, has a big stride. Ricky Ponting has a big stride. And that's what you've got to do in England, because you're not going to get the pace in the pitches that you do in Australia. You're rarely going to get the bounce, which is the two factors that are important in hard pitches in Australia. In England, you get much slower surfaces, but you get a bit of movement. And the bigger the stride, nearer the pitch of the ball, you negate the movement.
Anderson still going at Katich, who knocks the ball away with a push square of the wicket on the offside. It seems a little unnecessary having a man out there at deep point, because it gives the batsman an easy single. 1 for 97. Katich is 31. Ponting back on strike. It was squared up by a very good delivery from Anderson a couple of overs ago. Flintoff's chatting away down there to Panesar about where the field's being deployed, and they're shifting left-right for the changeover. 2 slips into gully here. Anderson in, Ponting forward, pushes through the onside. Bopara on the scamper, and he leaves it to Panesar, and the result is a couple more as the score goes to 99. 1 for 99. Ponting in his sleeveless sweater. Didn't get 100 against South Africa in the series they won, but he made 2 80s, and he made them pretty quickly too. But he did look a little more vulnerable earlier on than I'd seen for a while, but he seems to be getting himself in here. Anderson trying to come up with a wicket-taking ball, bowls to him, and he's forward to the delivery and pushes around the pad to Bopara coming in from mid-wicket.
I think if you've done it at international level at test matches like Ponting, an experienced player, done it over quite a long period, if you're coming into the test matches and you feel good in yourself in your batting, even though you got out for not many runs, then you're okay because you've done it before. Now, if you're playing poorly, that's different. You know, if your footwork's poor and you're worried about it, then that's different.
Anderson bowls to him. He drives him on the bounce. Anderson knocks it down, and it ends up with Collingwood out there in the covers.
Because sometimes you can play cricket, as you know, as a batsman, you make one mistake or one good ball and you get out. You know, you don't get a second chance like golfers. They took a double bogey and 17 more holes to catch up, haven't they? I once said to Nick Faldo, I said, listen, if you play golf like we play cricket, you know, every time you made a bogey, you were all finished. I said, you won't last more than 2 days, most. He said, crikey, we won't get through the first day.
Anderson bowls short, and it's hammered away. Down behind point towards the boundary. It's saved out there, just in the nick of time. Who's down there on the boundary?
Cook.
Oh, that's Cook. Cook under the ball, getting behind it. And the century comes up for Australia with that piercing offside shot. 1 for 101. Ponting goes along to 26. Yes, it's definitely. Well, there's 18 test matches in a game of golf.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Not one. 18 innings. Back goes Ponting and plays away into the covers. That's the way I look at it.
Be interesting to see these top pros have a tournament, and the first time you made a bogey, you're out, gone. Start heading back to the clubhouse, start walking back. That would be quite embarrassing. You see how many were left?
Sudden death tournament.
Yeah.
You just by a process of elimination start with 140 players.
Yeah.
And see who's left.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Yeah.
I think Tiger Woods would probably win more than most.
I'm not sure he would. He makes a few bogeys, but he likes a lot of birdies and eagles.
I'll make way for CMJ, who's coming in to join you, Jeffrey, with Australia 1 for 101, and Graeme Swann's about to take up operations again at this Cathedral Road end.
Well, if you think about it logically, Australia are ahead on points at the moment. England were 90-odd for 3, weren't they? 93 for 3. Australia 101 for 1. So they're doing pretty well, Australia.
Here's Swann to Katich, who comes well forward and plays in that very characteristic way of his, where he just breaks the wrist at the last moment. It enables him to stun the spin and also to drive pretty effectively, but not in the same way as others. In comes Swann round the wicket with 2 slips. He's not actually got the ball to turn. It's pushed again into the offside quite as much as Hauritz did this morning. To give Hauritz his due, he did turn it this morning. Got a bit of hammer as well.
He tosses it up a bit more.
Yeah, that's
a bit more prep school.
Then comes Swann again. That's pushed through a bit more into the pads of Katich, who turns it back with a square on the onside. Flintoff feels, and there's no run. Flintoff with his shirt sleeves buttoned down at the wrists. Produced a very hostile spell after lunch. Cricket a bit quieter at the moment as Swann floats that up. That turned and rather emphasised Jeffrey's point that they gave it more air and it bit and turned more as a consequence. But Katich left it alone, aware that Collingwood and Strauss are pretty close at slip, first and second. Swann again round the wicket to the left-hander. who plays bat and pad together into the offside.
See, these pitches,
Strauss picks it up.
I don't think they're that difficult to play spinners on, because it's slow turn. It's not jumping, it's not keeping low, it's just slow turn. If you see this every week in India, the Indians won't bat an eyelid at this.
No, it's very like that. In comes Strauss, Swann rather, and bowls to Katich, who gets onto the back foot and hits it firmly into the offside, but never a chance of beating Pietersen in the covers. And a maiden over, 101 for 1 in reply to England's 4-3-5.
I mean, you're old enough and experienced enough to have seen cricket in this country, which I played a lot on, uncovered pitches. And sometimes as they were drying out, they would jump as well as turn a lot, and then they were much more difficult.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just because it turns, I mean, if you talk to Indian batsmen and you say, oh, it'll turn a bit, they'll say, yeah, so what? You know, if it turns quickly and jumps or scuttles along the deck a bit, that's a bit different. You're going up and down and sideways, then you've got a serious problem.
And I tell you who would have been an even better bowler, he really would have been on uncovered pitches, and that is Monty Panesar, who's coming on now, because he does give it a big tweak with those huge hands of his. But we all know he's had a poor season so far. He only hit anything like form last week, just in time. England have shown faith in him, the selectors, and I think Strauss has publicly backed him. And we shall see how going back to basics for Ponting is going to work. He's going to bowl his first ball of this match in this series from the River Taff end to Ricky Ponting. And the field is sorting themselves out at 101 for 1. Bowling so far, Anderson 8 overs for 35 runs. Broad 8 overs for 41 runs. Swann 6 overs 4 maidens, none for 5. And Flintoff 6 overs 2 maidens, 1 for 15. He got Hughes out for 36. Caught behind. Good catch by Pryor. But England need a second wicket before tea. In comes Panesar round the wicket from the river end. And his first ball is just pushed away off a leg stump line by Ponting for a bread and butter single. There was no one at square leg. Strauss came round from mid-wicket. Ponting goes to 27. On an overcast afternoon still.
I think he's a confidence bowler, Monty. You've got to pick him up, and I don't mean sillily. You can't tell somebody they're bowling well when they've bowled a bit of rubbish, can you? But I think you just got to let him know that psychologically that you're for him, you're with him, where he is a good bowler.
Comes over the wicket and turns that into the left-handed Katich, who plays it very proficiently square on the onside with the spin. Bopara fields, one more run. England looking pretty slick in the field on this excellent outfield. We look down from the Cathedral Road end at Panesar coming into bowl to Ponting, who steers it into the offside, a single off every ball so far. Expertly finding the gap there, Ponting.
Well, that's how England did against their spinner. They took runs in a comfort vein, really, with no risk. It was almost no-risk cricket yesterday afternoon when Hauritz was bowling.
104 for 1. Katich now goes across his stumps, pushes to short leg, where Cook is fielding with his cap tucked into his back pocket, but a helmet on. Strauss is at leg slip. Collingwood at slip. Broad at backward point. Pietersen at short mid-wicket as Panesar bowls, and the first one gets through past the bat, hits the pad, and almost as if like Pavlov's dog, Panesar leaps into the air and screams an appeal, which is turned down. He bowls again, and Katich steers it into the offside gap for an easy single. So no real alarms in that first over from Panesar, but he's got it out of the way. Generally speaking, he dropped on a length, and I'm sure the sharp turn will come in time. 105 for 1. However, Australia responding with resolution to England's 435 and then 99 this morning off only 16 overs and 5 balls. Exciting it was.
Yeah, I think as soon as he hits the pad, Monty appeals. It's just his nature. I think the other thing about spinners, sometimes seamers, but mainly spinners, when you get a slow pitch like this, it takes you a few balls and over or so to know what is your really best length.
Here's Swann again. He bowls to Katich, who wants a quick single here, but I think he changed his mind, actually, because Ponting looked initially prepared to come and then had to turn round again as Katich looked as though he was going to run and then said no. Swann, shirt sleeves buttoned down at the wrists. Goes in with that smooth off-break action, bowls to Katich, who plays just a suspicion of uppishly towards Pietersen at short mid-off. Short extra. Swann teasing away. Right arm comes free and he bowls to Katich, who drives into the offside only as far as Pietersen. The women's Ashes get underway tomorrow with their only test match. It's what determines the Ashes for the moment, at least in the women's game. In comes Swann. Appeal. I don't think Swann did appeal, actually. There were appeals from behind the bat as it hit Katich's front pad. Pitched outside leg stump.
They got so many LBWs against the West Indies left-handers, no wonder the appeal.
Yeah. Swann again to Katich. Floats that up. Katich, bat and pad together. Plays it to Pietersen at short extra, who threatens to throw at the stumps. Doesn't release the ball. But it'll be a great occasion for the England women, who are right on top of their game after winning the World Cup and then beating Australia. In comes Swann, pushed to short leg and no run. In all the one-day games that were completed, I think I'm right in saying, 4 out of 5. And we will have regular reports on that match at Worcester on Test Match Special, and we'll also have commentary on the final day of the match on 5 Live Sports Extra on Monday. And if you'd like to go along to that game at Worcester, you don't have to pay a penny to go in. Pay £20. No, you don't. It's free entry. So I'm sure a lot of people will go and support the girls. They did themselves proud, didn't they? Panesar, meanwhile, trying to get a wicket for England, comes in and bowls to Ponting, who sweeps expertly, a measured sweep, and it's got 4 runs. Broad settles for the inevitable and trots after the ball. Beautifully played by Ponting. Not a great flourishing swing of the bat, just a careful placement of the ball, really.
Yeah, just a little too much leg side, just allowing him to sweep. Just get him playing through the offside. You got most of your men there, get him playing there.
Pitch middle and turn it away.
Correct.
Cook at silly mid-off. Goes down in hope as Panesar bowls again. And Ponting again shovels it round the corner. This time Broad is in the path of it and they just get the 1 run. Panesar round the wicket to the right-hander, will go over to the left. 110 for 1. He's got so few wickets this season, he must be deep down a bit short of confidence. And what he needs is an early wicket here to get that well-known zest going again. He comes in over the wicket and bowls to Katich, giving that air. Katich pads it away. Dangerous thing to do if it is turning from outside the off stump.
He needs to get a good over in, a good over where he feels I've stopped the runs, I've got it tight, I think I've got the line, the length I want, and just work from there. Don't try too many things. Try and get the line and length right so he feels comfortable.
Up he comes again. He bowls to Katich, who goes forward and plays towards mid-wicket, and there's no run. I know Eddie Hemmings I chatted to once that he always tried to start with at least 1 maiden, preferably a few more, just to get into it. Panesar comes in and bowls just outside the off stump. Katich gets right across so that he's playing right under his nose. He has batted well, Simon Katich. When he was 10, he gave Flintoff a quarter chance, really, off his own bowling. Might have stuck on a very lucky day. In comes Panesar and leaps in the air in the presumably the supposition that he hit pad before he hit bat there. The ball dropped down on the offside.
His last 3 balls were better. He got him sort of padding away, playing forward. It turned and hit the pad. And it is. It's just when you get slower pitches, you just need to pitch it up a little more. You've almost got to slightly overpitch. You can't afford to give them the wrong line on the leg side. You can't afford to be short because there's so much time and ease that can hit you on the back foot. And I mean, this sort of pace we played on a lot at Yorkshire with our more rain than you do, say, down in Sussex, which used to be a very quick pitch, didn't it?
Once upon a time,
apparently not. But it used to be.
Swann now over the wicket to Ponting, too short, and Ponting pulls him hard towards the square leg boundary. A very, very good stop by James Anderson, who a perfect throw too, pretty well over the bells to Pryor. As you often say, Geoffrey, he is one of the best outfielders of any fast bowler.
I've never seen one better. You have maybe, but I have not seen a fast opening bowler better than him. He's a brilliant fielder.
112 for one. Malcolm's got a statistic, but after this ball, which is turned through the two short legs by Ponting for another single to Anderson, 113 for one. He goes up to 35.
Yeah, just to say, Chris, those were the first runs conceded by Swann in this spell of 5 overs. This is his 6th over. Previous 5 were maidens.
He was bidding for the Ned Carney record, I think it is. Up comes Swann again, floating it up to Katich, who plays a little clipped-on drive for 2. Flintoff runs round from mid-off to long on to field. And having conceded his first run, Swann immediately concedes 2 more. 115. Well, his first 3 runs, actually. Three balls in succession runs have come from. 115 for 1. Ponting 36, Katich 35. 2 slips and a forward shot still there. Swann bowls to Katich, who was the slips. Thought he was in more trouble than he actually was, I think, there, but he did have to adjust late as the ball just skidded onto him a wee bit quicker. And he played it down into the ground. Swann again, this time Katich is forward to a ball that turns sharply and leaves it well. But encouragement for Swann. Bounced a bit too. Pryor took a bail off. So far has kept wicket excellently. Swann again. Katich is forward, keeping the ball down with an angled bat. Stopped his second slip by Strauss. I agree with Ian Chappell that the crowd are showing signs of real cricket knowledge, that they applaud every little bit of good cricket by either side. Somebody's phone interfering. Vic looks guiltless. I'm pretty sure mine's given up the ghost like my computer, so
oh, no.
That's not on. Exhibit A. It has. I'm a Jonah. 115 for 1.
Extraordinarily unlucky.
It has nothing to do with me, honest.
Important for England that Panesar, not as he gets a wicket, but just gets into the groove.
Yep.
And a couple of maidens would help.
He bowls too far outside the leg stump again, however, and there's a leg by as Ponting tried to flick it round the corner and the ball brushed his pad. But Doctrove tapped his right knee. The trees beyond the river are absolutely still today. It's a different day completely from yesterday. Much cloudier it's been, but also I think a wee bit warmer this afternoon anyway than it was this morning, and the breeze has dropped completely. Panesar, shirt sleeves rolled up, bowls outside the off stump, and a typical Katich cover drive with that flick of the wrists at the last moment. He's only got 2 runs for it as Broad overhauled the ball. Good strong throwback to Pryor. But more runs onto this increasingly useful and, from England's point of view, threatening second wicket partnership. Helicopter's engine chops overhead. Panesar bowls and Katich comes forward and plays it almost within the grasp of Bopara at Scilly Point. Panesar with his height just getting that to fizz on into the front pad. Bowls again, and Katich wristily cuffs him away square on the onside. For one run, Flintoff comes racing in on his heels, as he always does, but gets to it quickly enough. Throw to the base of the stumps, neatly gathered by Pryor. 119 for 1. England trying to be patient, but they're far from desperate for a wicket, but they're very keen to get one before tea. In comes Panesar. He bows to Ponting, who goes back and across and plays in defence from a square position. Ponting determined to the core of him, and also, of course, vastly experienced. Played pretty well for his 36 so far. Panesar bowls to him and gives up more air. Ponting drives it in measured fashion straight up this whitey brown pitch. Panesar feels off his own bowling, and Australia are 119 for 1. And Victor, until it's time for a cup of tea, you will be in the company of Henry Blofeld, and so will our listeners.
Well, you can see from the field settings almost how Strauss has a bit more confidence in Graeme Swann than he does in Panesar. Looking at Swann's field setting, there is no one, not one single player on the boundary. There are 3 men round the bat. But for Panesar, there are at least 2.
Swann it is then from the Cathedral Road end, bowls, and Katich is forward, rolling the ball back gently to Swann. So he's got first slip gully and a forward short leg, and also a short extra cover with Pietersen. I just got the feeling that something is about to happen. I don't know why, and I may well be wrong, but I've just got that sort of feeling in my guts. Here comes Swann again. This one's worked away towards mid-wicket by Katich. It's Panesar who picks up. Panesar does, I'm afraid, he tries his heart out in the field, but he's a slow mover, and there were many that were so near him that if anyone else on the England side set Panesar, I doubt they would have run. 36 now to Katich, and it's 122 for 1. And the field changing round for the right-handed Ponting. Still 3 men round the bat, short mid-wicket as opposed to the short extra cover, 2, a slip, silly point and a backward short leg. Here comes Swann, and that's driven a push drive by Ponting, and Monty is after it. This time Monty stops what seemed to be a probable 2, throws in over the head of Swann, but it's well backed up on the offside there by Pietersen.
Panesar did well there to keep them to 1, but he is not 100% fit. He's hobbling a bit. I'm telling you.
That's worrying, isn't it? 120. So difficult, that scoreboard, isn't it? 124, I think it is, for 1. And here comes Swann again in, and Katich plays that straight to Panesar at wide mid-on, and there is no run there at all. It says 121 for 1. 2 small figures on this scoreboard. You can't see them. Here comes Swann again, bowls, and Katich is forward, playing that to Pietersen at short extra cover, and there's no run. It's a game of cat and mouse. Now Swann decides to bowl over the wicket to the left-handed Katich. Ponting comes down the pitch and gives it a prod. A seagull planes gracefully over the top of proceedings, and a rather inquisitive seagull, that one. And here is Swann again, in now to Katich, bowls, Katich drives, down to mid-off, and Flintoff fields, returns to Pryor, and there is no run there. It is the end of Swann's over. The score is 121 for 1. 37 to Ponting and 39 to Katich. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Good. My old eye is better than mine.
There's a contrast between watching Swann bowl today and Nathan Hauritz bowl yesterday. Swann is bowling to Ponting, just as Hauritz bowled to Pietersen. When Hauritz was bowling to Pietersen, there were 3 or 4 men on the boundary. Swann bowling to Ponting. Currently, there's 1 man on the boundary, and that's why Swann is at least being extremely economical.
Panesar in now, bowls to Ponting. Ponting in another push drive, gets a single out there to to Flintoff, rather deep out there at cover. A nice throw in. Swann, 9 overs, 5 maidens, none for 12. Economy itself. Panesar, this is his 4th over, and he's no maidens, none for 13 so far. He hasn't quite hit the groove, and you've detected, do you think something's slightly wrong with his leg?
Well, not so much when he's running up to bowl, but when he did those 2 pieces of fielding, he's just moving a bit gingerly after he's completed them.
Here he is, over the wicket, bowls to Katich. Katich is on the pad. There's a stifled appeal. The ball rolls back to Panesar. We got 4 men round the bat, a slip, a silly point, forward short leg, and then a 4th man really, and a short mid-wicket. Singing in the background. Not very Welsh, I think. It's rather out of tune, but there we are. Here comes Panesar again in, and that's swept away there by Katich. He's gone for just the single down to Flintoff at deep backward square leg. In comes that typical low raking throw, a little bit short of Pryor, but took it well on the half volley. 123 now for 1, and Katich goes along to 40. A very acquisitive, important, accumulative sort of an innings, and well, I think that's probably a bit tautological. Nonetheless, it's an invaluable contribution for Australia. Panesar in, round the wicket, bowls to Ponting. Ponting sweeps and is going to get a single down to a deep backward square leg, and rather to fine leg really in the end. And so Ponting now goes to 39. And the score to 124 for 1. Constant changing round for the left-hander and the right-hander. It is now Katich who's in strike, and he's making sure that they move the advertising sign off the sight screen behind the bowler's arm. They've done so, and here comes Panesar in, and he bowls, and Katich goes across his stumps, plays it away with the spin, and it hits Cook. A little bit of Cook stopping it, and it hitting Cook, and it just rebounded a yard or two, and there was no question of any run. But he hit it quite firmly, and though Cook moved to it, it hit him really. Panesar once more in, bowls, and Katich drives this to 1, hits Bopara, silly point, and ricochets away to Strauss at short mid-wicket. It's the end of a Panesar over. Panesar not bowling quite as steadily, as metronomically as one would like him to, but he's not giving a lot away. 124 for 1 at the end of the over, 39 now to Ponting, and 40 to Katich.
Yeah, I think he is more confident. Swann is far more confident than Panesar at the moment, who's sort of feeling his way back into Test cricket, perhaps. And like all bowlers, but especially Panesar, whose confidence is a bit fragile at the moment. 1 wicket would transform him, but he's still searching. He hasn't got many wickets this season. I think he'd taken 6 in a lot of cricket before the match up at Birmingham when England played Warwickshire. And in that game, he did get 3 cheap wickets, but they were tail-enders in a match that was nowhere near the intensity of a test match or even a first-class match. Now we're getting a bit of shuffling going on by Strauss. I think that's fair enough. Swann has come off. We might see him perhaps go up the other end and replace Panesar. I don't know. But Broad is coming back. The ball now will be a little bit older. Don't expect quite so much bounce, and he's got a field similar to that used by some of the Australian bowlers as 2 men sort of in catching positions on the leg side. In fact, Cook is going back to an orthodox square leg, but there's a short mid-wicket, the shortest extra cover, just the 1 slip, which tells you what England think about this surface, that it's not going to be fizzing through, presenting lots of slip catching opportunities.
And in fact, Cook has gone back there from a forward shortish leg, almost out on the boundary now. And it is Broad running in now to bowl to Ponting. He's up there, he gets the wicket, he bowls, and Ponting gets back, he's beaten, and arms go up. He didn't get an 8, that kept a bit low, I think, and he was neither quite one thing nor the other. It caught him on the crease, but that was an absolute beauty, Victor.
It did. Well, he kept low,
yes.
And it scuttled between bat and pad. And it wasn't so far from the off stump. I mean, that was partly the ball keeping low, partly the change of bowling, a different challenge for Ponting. And for a minute, Broad thought he had something, but
well,
still there. He's the big wicket. obviously, Ricky Ponting, captain.
He's always the big wicket, isn't he, Ponting? Gosh, yes. And here is Broad again. He'll be feeling chipper after that. He's up to the wicket now. He bowls, and Ponting reaches forward. Broad himself fields in his follow-through, and then runs almost up to Ponting, but that's not going to unsettle Ponting. I was very amused to read about a week or 10 days ago that Cricket Australia had written to all members of the Australian side forbidding sledging, forbidding swearing, and all those things. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
And, I mean, talk about telling the dog not to bark.
Yes.
It made me smile.
I can't believe that they were doing it in all seriousness, surely.
And who's going to police it? I couldn't agree more. Here's Broad in, bowling now to Ponting, and Ponting comes forward, well bowled Broad. Broad fields, underarms back to Pryor as a sort of, I don't know, just an instinctive, not a particularly threatening gesture, and then walks in his long strides back to his mark. Apparently the Australian public had informed Cricket Australia, I don't know if a vote had been taken or quite how it had happened, that they didn't really care for the way that their international cricketers had been carrying on. So they got a verbal slap over the wrist, which I suggest didn't make much of an impact, but there we are.
Although, having said that, you think back to the England innings, I don't think there was much said, was there?
No, maybe not. Broad it is again. In now burst Ponting. Ponting shoulders arms in magnificent style. He comes lunging forward, his bat high above his head, and then he scratches busily at his mark as Broad walks back, and the ball finds its way back by way of the offside field. Broad is bowling to 2 slips now, and what am I talking about? 1 slip, a gully, cover, extra cover mid-off, mid-on, short mid-wicket, Pietersen, square leg, and a fine leg in the far distance. Monty. And here comes Broad again, in, bowls now to Ponting, and Ponting goes to pull that away, and it's a chase there for Monty at fine leg as he dives, and he stops it. Well done him. He does, I mean, you've got to hand it to Monty. It's a good throw back, too, into Pryor's gloves, and he may be slow, he may give away the odd second run when perhaps another fielder wouldn't, but my goodness, he gives 110% effort.
No, that was a good piece of fielding. He might have gone for 4, he dived, and it's not enough to stop Ponting do something significant. His 11,000th test run. Go on.
Now, if Bill were here, he would be spinning, I tell you. That includes the test match against, or alleged test match against the rest of the world, which of course he wouldn't.
And your eminent predecessor wouldn't therefore have allowed that record to stand.
Not at all.
Here comes Broad again, in bowls to Ponting. Ponting just plays from the crease, pushing that out into the covers. It's the sun-hatted Bopara fields, and there is no run. There is a great element of competition. Australia at the moment edging their way happily to tea in a better position than England would like.
Yep.
But I don't think somehow that we are far away from something happening. It's tense, the cricket out there. It's good cricket, and nothing's been given away. No quarter on either side, you might say. And we saw that ball keep low, the first ball that Broad bowled. Sometime soon, something like that is going to happen.
No, well, this is good. I mean, it's contrast to the mayhem of the morning. This is good, hard, pretty good quality too. Test cricket, traditional test cricket. Having in this session.
Panesar now from the tough end, bowling to the left-handed Katich. 3 men round the bat. Panesar's in, bowls. Oh, Katich throws it in the air, and there's a big appeal for a catch by Cook at short leg, but I think it was only pad. I say big appeal. I think it was an obligatory appeal rather more than... It never really looked as though he did hit it. He lunged forward, and it hit the pad, the turn taking the ball away to Cook. Cook's fell forward and held it, but the bat, importantly, didn't make contact with the leather.
That hit a foothold, and it was quite a...
Well, that's quite a telling point. Panesar in again, bowls, and this time Katich pushes the ball into the cover gap, almost pushing the ball between Bopara's legs, and it's picked up at wide mid-off, and they get a single, so it's 40-1 each, Ponting and Katich, and it's 127-1. And everything is having to be worked for. Every run, every dot ball, everything else you like to say. And now Ponting's in strike, a slip and a silly point and a short extra cover. Round the wicket, Panesar comes, bowls, Ponting's forward, and that's picked up by Strauss at a shortish mid-wicket. The forward short leg is now gone for Ponting, so that's a minor victory for him. And Panesar back at his mark. In now, up to the wicket, bowls, and Ponting goes back, plays that to cover point. Well, there's a little bit of misfielding there by Pietersen, who really should have done a little bit better than that. He was perhaps a little bit slow to that. The ball got away from him and allowed Ponting to go through for a single that should never have been. So he's 42, and it's 100 now and 28 for 1. And Panesar back over the wicket, bowling to the left-handed Katich. Katich covers up a ball that turned into him, and he goes on the bounce to Cook there at forward short leg, who just steps forward, picks it up lightly, returns it to Panesar, who walks back thoughtfully and perhaps a trifle apprehensively. He's in now, he's up to the wicket, he bows, and Katich makes a little bit of room and cuts, but he doesn't get a run there. It's fielded by Broad there at backward point. It is the end of the over. 128 for 1, 42 to Ponting, 41 for Katich, and this game of cat and mouse continues.
Yeah. Just tell me, Malcolm, do you count those runs? I mean, Bill pontificated on this, do you?
No, I don't.
You don't count them either?
No, go. Well, splendid. Now we know. So Ponting has scored 10,000 and how many runs now, is it? No, don't worry. I mean, they're putting your leg.
No, he's going to find out for us. Whatever he scored, it's an awful lot of test runs.
It's 10,900.
And 2.
And 902.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, there are records and records, and we don't allow indecent records to stand. And this proprietary position or proper position, I should say, of the TMS box. Broad is in now. Bowls to Ponting. Ponting drives. It was aiming through the offside. A lot of bottom hand there, and the ball trickled down to Flintoff at mid-on. Our trumpeter or bugler is in tremendous form, and the trumpeter actually is in better form than the singers.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
It's rather discordant. It's like listening to a lot of chiming bells that aren't synchronized. Do you know what I mean? Chiming clocks. And the crowd in very good voice. I'm sure a little bit of beer or whatever has been drunk. And here comes Broad. He's in. He bowls to Ponting. Ponting's forward, turning that run round the corner. He's wonderful, Ponting, at picking up, isn't he? At nurdling the singles. He hardly ever misses. And that run was picked up there by Cook at a backward square leg. It's 129 for 1. Ponting's gone long to 43. And he goes down the wicket now and does a bit of guarding at the other end, the end from which he has just emerged. Or maybe he wanted to have a bit of a word with Katich at the same time. A gentleman in a hat, rather a sort of Australian-looking hat, comes down some steps there in the pavilion, the yellow steps. And the spot, it's this end, the hospitality suite end of the pavilion. Also the dining suite end, I think, but I'm not sure. No, it's probably not. Players' dining room will be behind their dressing rooms, otherwise they'd have to go on a route march for lunch and tea and anything else that they might want, and I'm sure that's not so. And it's Broad who's gone round. Now we got 2 short extra covers. He bowls now to Katich. He's up to the wicket. He bowls. Katich goes back and hits this one away, probably for 4 runs. We'll have to wait and see. It's being chased down for far distance. It was a bad ball by Broad. That it was short. It was wide of the off stump. Katich stood up on his toes and forced it away just back into the square for 4. It was easy as toffee, wasn't it?
It was effortlessly played, didn't he? He just stroked that away.
Not a good ball.
No, it wasn't a good ball, but the timing was terrific. Just a gentle stroke wide of gully to the right of cover. 4 easy runs, it seems, for Katich, who's looking dangerous. Not aggressively dangerous, but he just looks immovable, doesn't he?
Obstinately dangerous. We got Flintoff and Collingwood there as the 2 short extra covers, looking a bit like the brothers Bim and Bomb as they get out their hands on their haunches. And here comes Broad in again, and Katich plays that from the crease along the ground to Collingwood, the square of the 2.
Who are these brothers?
The brothers Bim and Bomb. I remember there being some fairy tale when I was young, who looked rather alike, you know, and you couldn't tell other from which. Collingwood and Flintoff, I mean, you can tell them apart, of course you can, but they were both in identical positions, weren't they? And looking slightly humorous, I thought, with bending with their arms on their hands on their knees. It's 133 for 1, and Broad is in now. He bowls, and Katich steers that really to backward point, and there is no run. We've got what now, about 2.5 minutes left until tea. So this over and perhaps one more. Yeah, actually, we get one more. And
just to fill you in, Henry, because beat some of the emailers. Bim Bom was a Moscow circus clown duo consisting of Ivan and someone else.
Oh, thank you. Here comes Broad. Bowls again to Katich. Katich plays that down fine of gully for 4 runs. His second 4 in the over. It was a very good controlled shot. And there was a great convulsive leap there by Pietersen, but he cruised right, but he couldn't get there. And Katich has played 2 splendid strokes in this over. Now 137 for 1. And he now goes to 49.
Yeah, and so easily has he picked up 8 runs. Not the worst balls in the world, but just a little bit short, a little bit wide. But he just waited and waited. He's got the pace of the pitch now, Katich.
He's a perfect player for this sort of pitch, isn't he?
I think so. He's got the patience. I think it is a patient batsman's pitch. None of the England batsmen were that patient, let's face it. And he's sitting there on the back foot. He's liking the fact the ball is not leaping at him. It's coming slowly off the pitch.
And you don't get the suspicion he's going to play a reverse sweep as Pietersen did.
No, I don't get that suspicion. He's just playing everything off on its merits. But there, just opening the face a little bit, off the middle of the bat, just guiding the ball down to third man. Panesar's come off just before tea, and the more impressive of the 2 English spinners so far, that's Graeme Swann, is coming back just to try and sneak another wicket before tea.
At the River Taff end, and he's in, he bowls to Ponting, and Ponting comes forward driving, and they go for a very quick single. That ball cannoned into Cook at Siddle Point, and then went away to Monty Panesar at mid-off, and the time Panesar had come in and collected it, they'd run a single. So it's 138 now for 1, and 44 to Ponting. And Katich needs 1 for his 50. And here is Swann round the wicket to him, in he bowls, and he plays for it on the pad. There's a big appeal. No, not out. The umpires have given no one out LBW in this match yet, and they've not looked remotely like it. I mean, there's never been any sort of
twitch. Not a twitch.
Not a twitch or even a nose pick, has there? Umpire Dotrove is very much a not out. Umpire Alim Dar doesn't like giving him out unnecessarily. And here is Swann again. Forward comes Katich, and that's fielded there by Broad at backward point. And well, I suppose all cricketers are batsmen. If you say no to everything, you're elegant, not give more pleasure than the other way, perhaps. Here comes, that's his 50. It's a lovely shot. It's an on-drive. It's gone away for 4, and that was a lovely shot. Swann floated that half volley onto his about middle stump. He hit it beautifully, and that is Katich's 50. Ponting stops and congratulated him mid-pitch. And again, he plays it so easily. It looked so simple. It was a half volley. It wasn't just in the wrong position, and he moving across his stumps. He played it away. It was easy as pie. So he's 53, and it's 142 for 1. And here comes Swann again into Katich. Bowles, Katich is forward, and Swann goes across in front of mid-off and fields. It was a lovely shot, wasn't it?
Well, he didn't try and hit it too hard. He just tapped it, really, but he knew he had space to... Panesar's right at mid-on, and he just hit it hard enough to cross the rope. No harder than that necessarily.
Exactly, nothing at all. And here is Swann again, Bowles, and Katich is forward, killing the ball, as it were, in the crease beside him, and that is the end of the entertainment for the afternoon. Malcolm Ashton wants to pounce upon us.
Just about the 50, Henry. 15 is 38th Test match, 123 balls in 150 minutes, with 5 boundaries.
Well, there we are, and he's played a magnificent role for Australia, and of course Ponting has too. The man out was that dramatic left-hander Phillip Hughes, who was caught splendidly by Pryor off Flintoff, and since the score was 60 then, and since then England have had to hold on. Of course, Katich was dropped, a very, very difficult return chance by Flintoff when he was 10, but otherwise these two have done absolutely splendidly for Australia. And poised behind me is our intrepid leader, Aggers himself, who's going to take over for me. And will you say something to allow a smooth transition, please, Victor Marks?
Well, I'll do my level best. I'm sure the next guest will be pretty content with how things are going. going from an Australian point of view. The loss of Hughes' wicket to Flintoff, nice little duel there, but since then all has been calm assurance from the two Aussie batsmen out there. Katich has got a half century, a real traditional test match half century, taking his time, watching the ball like a hawk, and just patting it away for 4 when he gets the chance. Ponting has played superbly. He's got 40 odd without us really noticing. But that's what good players do, great players. 241
runs scored in the day so far.
Yeah, but they're decelerating a bit. We can breathe a bit.
Yeah, it's been a very entertaining day, isn't it?
Yeah.
OK, 142 for 1. And thank you, Victor. Katich 53, Ponting 44. So Australia 293 behind on England's first innings.